At the end of the recent legislative session here in Minnesota, a bevy of new laws went into effect. Today we're going to look at 5 new laws in Minnesota that went into effect July 1st, 2023 that small businesses should know about. My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business law and estate planning attorney with offices in Edina, Minnesota and New York City, and today let's look at 5 of those laws that you'll want to know if you're running a small business here in Minnesota. So if you've paid attention to the news, you've probably seen that the budget year has passed, and as the new budget has gone into effect, there are a variety of new laws and rules and regulations here in Minnesota that businesses have to adhere to. There's plenty of other regulations that don't necessarily apply to businesses, but apply to us as consumers and individuals. But today let's look at 5 business-focused laws that if you're running a small business, you're going to want to make sure that you are up to date on and knowledgeable about because they can affect you and your employees. Change number 1, the space for lactating mothers. Now, this law has been on the books for a while. We've now expanded it to include all employers. And the big difference you need to know about as an employer is there's now language in that law requiring that the room or the space you provide has to be clean, private, and secure. So hopefully if you have employees who are in this situation, who are either lactating or they're about to give birth or have just told you they're pregnant, you're making sure to make the right accommodations for those employees so you can comply with the various laws. Number 2, an ergonomic standard for workplaces. So if your business is running a warehouse, a plant, a distribution center, Minnesota is now putting in new programs statewide to try to make sure that all of these warehouses and distribution centers are laid out in an ergonomic way. The goal is to prevent repetitive strain injuries to workers. So we don't want you doing the same thing over and over and over again every day, day after day, 40, 50 hours a week, maybe more. We want to make sure that we're finding an ergonomic way to set up your workstation to prevent you from getting those long-term repetitive injuries that can be caused by the strain of your day-to-day job. Law number 3, the new recreational marijuana law. So the first thing you need to know is that it's still not recognized on a federal level. So we end up in this interesting space where some things can be done on the state level, but not on the federal level. So, for example, if you're running a business that is either in this industry or adjacent, you can't actually do your banking at the federal level in a federally insured bank. You have to find a state charter bank or some kind of a local financial institution, not an FDIC-backed institution, to even be able to handle your processing and your money. So it's a big, important step you need to understand in this industry is the difference between the federal approval and the state approval, and we don't have federal approval yet. If you're running a business that has commercial licenses and you have people, let's say, driving trucks for your business, you need to also understand that you're going to need to update your employee handbooks and your employee policies to deal with the fact that recreational marijuana will now be legal in Minnesota, so that you can't necessarily enforce those same drug policies against your employees as you could in the past when you're dealing with somebody who may test positive for marijuana, who is using it recreationally in Minnesota and not on the job. So this lack of federal recognition is going to continue to cause a challenge for the states here who have actually enacted marijuana laws, and until the federal government steps in and makes a final decision on whether they're going to legalize it or not. Law number 4 to know about, very important, paid sick days. So there's a few new provisions in the law. So first of all, full-time employees get at least 6 paid days a year. What's going to happen under the new formulation is that employees will accrue 1 hour of paid sick leave for every 30 hours they work, up to 48 hours a year. Employees will also be able to use the time off for a number of reasons, and you want to pay attention to the new checklist for those. We have recovering from an illness, a doctor's appointment, care for a sick family member, counseling or a psychological appointment, severe weather caused work or school to close for them or a member of their family, and finally to seek services for domestic abuse, sexual assault, or stalking. So any of these can be a reason why your employees can use their paid sick days, which can be at least 6 a year, and we have the new formula for how they can be accumulated throughout the year. So it's very important that your HR professionals are up to date and they understand how we're going to be dealing with paid sick leave here in Minnesota going forward. And number 5, and a real big one here in the legal field, is that Minnesota has now banned non-compete agreements. If you've paid attention to the news, you've seen that the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is also attempting to do a similar ban on a national level. For now, however, we have it here in Minnesota where you're no longer allowed to use non-compete agreements. They've been used by a variety of companies. I've drafted plenty for my clients over the years, as well as reviewed them for clients of mine who are going to work at a different company or are exiting a company and trying to figure out their next steps. So these have been very commonplace in the employment world for years, but now here in Minnesota, they are no longer valid. Some companies even tried to use them on interns. I'd written a blog about that a couple years ago and got some interesting feedback from people because companies were so worried about what those interns were going to learn in that summer internship that they were requesting that they actually sign a non-compete agreement. One thing you should know is that if you are currently operating under a non-compete agreement prior to July 1st, so let's say your current employer gave you one on May 1st of 2023, that will still be enforceable, assuming it was properly drafted at the time. So this is only going to affect non-compete agreements drafted after July 1st, 2023. So for those employers who've been using them as a course of business over the years, you need to get those non-compete agreements out of your employment agreements and figure out a different way to come to agreements with your clients about long-term and how they're going to leave the company, but you can't do non-compete agreements anymore. So if you're a business here in Minnesota, those are 5 different laws that you want to make sure you understand and apply to your business. And again, not all of these laws may apply to you. You may not have employees. You may not deal with employees who are recreationally using marijuana. You may not run a warehouse. But no matter where you are, it's important that you understand what these laws are and how they can apply to you. So if you like this video and you'd like to learn more, or we need to have a consultation about how these different laws can affect your business, you can go to my website, 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙒.com. There's a red legal strategy session button on the front page. If you click that, you'll be taken to my calendar. We can set up a 15 or 20-minute phone call, a legal strategy session, to go over where you and your business are and to see whether or not we need to make any changes to comply with these laws. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. You can click the like button. Go over to YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel for future videos. And again, if I can be of any assistance, head over to my website. Let's set up a legal strategy session and see what we can do for you and your business.